Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art, by James Nestor. Introduction. Imagine deciding, for the sake of science, to completely block your nostrils with silicone plugs. For 10 full days. Every single breath you take, eating, sleeping, walking, has to come through your mouth. It sounds miserable, doesn't it? Almost like a form of self-inflicted torture. Yet this is exactly what the author, James Nestor, and a Swedish breathing therapist named Anders Olsson, subjected themselves to in a groundbreaking experiment at Stanford University. Within hours, their lives began to fall apart. Their blood pressure skyrocketed. Their heart rate variability plummeted, a sign of intense stress. They started snoring for hours a night, something they'd never done before. And for the first time in their lives, they both developed sleep apnea, a condition where you literally choke on yourself in your sleep, hundreds of times a night. They felt anxious, exhausted, and mentally foggy. All this, just from changing the pathway through which they breathed. This dramatic experiment sits at the heart of one of the most fascinating and important books I've come across in years, Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art. This isn't just a book that has sold millions of copies and been translated into dozens of languages. It's a book that has fundamentally changed the way we think about our most basic biological function. Nestor, a journalist, not a doctor, embarked on a decade-long journey to answer a simple question. Why are modern humans so bad at breathing? We are the only species in the animal kingdom plagued with chronically crooked teeth, sleep apnea, asthma, and a host of other respiratory ailments that our ancient ancestors never seemed to suffer from. What he discovered is that we have forgotten a fundamental pillar of health. We've lost an art that was once understood by ancient cultures, from the yogis of India to the Plains Indians of North America. An art that modern science is only now beginning to rediscover and validate. Today, I'm going to share with you the incredible story from this book. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you won't just understand why that crazy Stanford experiment was so important. You'll understand that how you breathe, right now, in this very moment, is shaping your health, your mind, and your life in ways you never thought possible. You will learn the secret of the perfect breath, a rhythm that ancient prayers and modern science both agree can bring your body into a state of perfect coherence. This is the story of a lost art, and how finding it again might be the most important thing you ever do for your health. Book summary. Our story begins, as so many do, with a problem. James Nestor was not a picture of perfect health. He was suffering from recurring pneumonia, his lungs felt weak, and his mind was constantly frazzled by stress. His doctor, almost as a last resort, suggested he try a breathing class. He found himself in a dusty, paint-chipped Victorian house, sitting on the floor with a motley crew of people, learning an ancient breathing technique called Sudarshan Kriya. For the first 20 minutes, nothing happened. He was annoyed, bored, and ready to leave. And then, something shifted. He didn't feel it happening, but when the session ended and he opened his eyes, he was drenched in sweat, as if he'd just run a marathon. The room was cool, yet he had sweated through his clothes. For the next few days, a profound sense of calm settled over him. He slept better than he had in years. The constant tension in his shoulders was gone. How could simply breathing in a specific pattern for an hour trigger such a powerful physical and mental reaction? That question sparked a 10-year investigation. It led Nestor away from traditional medical labs and into some of the most unexpected places on Earth. He dove with free divers who could hold their breath for over 8 minutes, descending to depths scientists thought were impossible for humans. When he asked them how they did it, they all said the same thing: it's not about having special lungs. It's about mastering the art of breathing. They told him that how we breathe affects everything, from our weight to our immune system, from our mental clarity to our lifespan. This idea, that breathing was a form of medicine, seemed radical. In modern medicine, breathing is often treated like a binary function. You're either breathing or you're not. Your doctor checks your pulse and blood pressure, but rarely, if ever, do they ask you how you breathe. Yet, as Nestor dug deeper, he found that ancient cultures had been obsessed with it for thousands of years. The Chinese Tao, ancient Hindu texts, Buddhist traditions, they all contain detailed instructions on how to regulate the breath to heal the body and reach higher states of consciousness. How could something be so important to our ancestors, and so completely ignored by us today? This brings us back to that wild experiment at Stanford. Nestor realized that to understand the power of proper breathing, he first had to understand the damage caused by improper breathing. And the most common form of improper breathing in the modern world is mouth breathing. An estimated half of us are chronic mouth breathers. The reasons are many: stress, pollution, allergies, but much of the blame lies with a startling change in the human skull. Nestor traveled to the basement of a university museum to meet with Drive. Mariana Evans, an orthodontist who was studying hundreds of skulls, both ancient and modern. The ancient skulls, some thousands of years old, all told the same story. They had wide jaws, forward-facing facial structures, and perfectly straight teeth, even though none of them had ever seen a dentist. Their nasal passages were enormous. These people, our ancestors, simply could not have snored or suffered from sleep apnea. Their airways were too wide, too open. But when she showed him modern skulls, the picture was the complete opposite. The jaws were recessed, the mouths were smaller, and nearly all of them had crooked teeth. Of the 5,400 species of mammals on Earth, humans are the only ones who routinely suffer from misaligned teeth. So what happened to us? The story starts around 800,000 years ago when our ancestors mastered fire. Cooking our food made it softer and released more calories. This was a huge evolutionary advantage. It saved us energy from chewing and digesting, and we used that extra energy to grow bigger brains. But there was a trade-off. As our brains expanded, our faces had to change. Over hundreds of thousands of years, our mouths began to shrink, our jaws grew weaker, and our airways became tighter. The same innovations that made us smarter also made it harder for us to breathe. This process was slow, but it was manageable. The real catastrophe happened much more recently, in the last few hundred years with the rise of the Industrial Revolution. We started eating processed foods, soft, mushy, and sugary. White flour, canned vegetables, jams. Foods that required almost no chewing at all. Our ancient ancestors chewed for hours a day. This constant stress on the jaw acted like an exercise, stimulating bone growth and ensuring their mouths and airways grew wide and strong. Without that stress, our faces began to collapse inward. This is the root cause of why so many of us have crooked teeth, stuffed-up noses, and obstructed airways. We are suffering from what one Harvard biologist calls disevolution. We are adopting traits that are detrimental to our health. We've engineered the need to chew right out of our lives, and our breathing has paid the price. This brings us full circle to Nestor and Olson with their noses plugged at Stanford. They were living out the reality of this modern facial structure, but in a compressed timeline. Their experiment proved just how quickly mouth breathing wreaks havoc on the body. The moment they removed the plugs, everything changed. Their blood pressure normalized, their stress hormones dropped, and their snoring and sleep apnea vanished completely. They cured themselves simply by returning to the way we were designed to breathe, through the nose. This is the first and most important mantra of the book: shut your mouth. The nose is a miraculous organ, designed to do far more than just smell. It cleans, heats, and moistens the air, making it easier for our lungs to absorb. But it does something else, something incredible. The sinuses release a huge boost of a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is essential for increasing circulation and delivering oxygen to your cells. It plays a role in immune function, weight, mood, and even sexual function. Nasal breathing can boost your nitric oxide levels by 6 times, which is one of the reasons we absorb about 18% more oxygen by breathing through our noses than through our mouths. Nestor even found doctors who recommended their patients tape their mouths shut at night. It sounds strange, but for people plagued by snoring and congestion, it can be life-changing. He tried it himself. After 3 nights of using just a tiny piece of tape over his lips, he went from snoring for hours to just 10 minutes. His sleep apnea disappeared. Breathing through the nose is the foundation. But it's just the beginning. The next lost art Nestor uncovered was about the pace of our breathing. We have become a culture of overbreathers. Most of us breathe too much, taking in far more air than our bodies need. You might think that taking big, deep breaths is the key to health, but the science says otherwise. One of the great paradoxes of breathing is that the key to health and endurance is to breathe slow and breathe less. To understand this, we have to talk about a gas we've been taught to fear: carbon dioxide. We think of it as just a waste product, something to be expelled from our bodies as quickly as possible. But carbon dioxide is the secret conductor of our respiratory orchestra. Imagine your blood cells are like cruise ships, and each one is loaded with oxygen passengers. When these ships arrive at your muscles and organs, they need a signal to let the oxygen passengers off. That signal is carbon dioxide. Without a sufficient presence of carbon dioxide in your blood, the oxygen stays locked onto the hemoglobin in your red blood cells. It's known as the Bohr effect. When we overbreathe, taking fast, shallow breaths, we blow off too much carbon dioxide. Our blood becomes saturated with oxygen, but that oxygen can't get to the cells where it's needed. We are literally starving our bodies of oxygen by breathing too much. So, what is the perfect breath? Through his research, Nestor found a remarkable convergence between ancient spiritual practices and modern science. When Buddhist monks chant their most popular mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, each phrase lasts about 6 seconds, followed by a 6-second inhale. The Rosary Prayer in Catholicism follows a similar rhythm. Researchers in Italy studied this phenomenon and were stunned. They found that reciting these prayers naturally slowed people's breathing to a rate of about 5.5 breaths per minute. That's an inhale of 5.5 seconds, and an exhale of 5.5 seconds. And here's the magic: whenever people breathed at this rate, their bodies entered a state of coherence. Their heart rate, circulation, and nervous system all synchronized, working at peak efficiency. Blood flow to the brain increased. This rhythm, this perfect breath, seems to be a universal key to balancing the body. It's a form of meditation for people who don't want to meditate, a prayer for those who aren't religious. This led Nestor to explore the work of a controversial Ukrainian doctor named Konstantin Buteyko. In the 1950s, Buteyko noticed that his sickest patients, especially those with asthma and high blood pressure, all breathed way too much. He believed that overbreathing was the cause of their illnesses, not just a symptom. He developed techniques to train people to breathe less. This practice, sometimes called hypoventilation training, was famously used by the legendary runner Emil Zatopek. He would hold his breath while running, training his body to become more efficient with less air. He went on to win 3 gold medals in 1 Olympics and break 18 world records. He did everything wrong, yet he won, because he had intuitively mastered the science of breathing less. This principle extends beyond athletics. Studies have shown that Buteyko's methods can dramatically reduce asthma symptoms, often better than medication, simply by training the body to tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide and breathe less. Now, we've covered the pathway, the nose, and the pace, slow and less. But there's another forgotten piece of the puzzle: the exhale. Nestor introduces us to a fascinating character named Carl Stuff, a choir conductor who, in the 1950s, was invited to a Veterans Affairs hospital to work with emphysema patients. These were men who were literally suffocating, unable to get enough air. The nurses had propped them up in bed, thinking it would help them inhale more easily. But Stuff saw the problem differently. Their issue wasn't that they couldn't get air in, it was that they couldn't get the stale air out. Their diaphragms, the primary muscle of respiration, had become weak and stiff. He taught them to focus only on the exhale. He had them count aloud, gently, pushing out every last molecule of stale air. Within weeks, the results were miraculous. Men who hadn't been able to walk across a room were climbing stairs. X-rays confirmed the impossible. They were physically changing the structure of their diaphragms and expanding their lung capacity. Stuff hadn't cured their disease, but he had taught them how to access the healthy parts of their lungs more efficiently. He called the diaphragm the second heart, because a full, powerful exhale helps pump blood through the body, easing the burden on the heart. So far, all these techniques have been about breathing slow, less, and with full exhales. But Nestor's journey took him to one final, more extreme frontier: breathing more, on occasion. This is where we meet Wim Hof, the Iceman, a Dutchman famous for his seemingly superhuman ability to withstand extreme cold. He has run a half-marathon barefoot in the Arctic and submerged himself in ice for nearly 2 hours. Scientists were baffled. Hof claimed his ability came from a breathing technique he developed, a modified version of an ancient Tibetan practice called tumo, or inner fire meditation. The method involves rounds of intense, fast, deep breathing, followed by a long breath hold. This practice is the opposite of breathing slow and less. It's a controlled form of hyperventilation. For a few minutes, you are intentionally putting your body under intense stress. This triggers a cascade of hormones: adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine. It's like flipping a switch on your immune system. In a landmark study, scientists injected Hof's trained students with an E. coli endotoxin that normally causes severe flu-like symptoms. The control group got sick. But the group that practiced the heavy breathing technique was able to consciously fight off the infection. They showed almost no symptoms. They had learned to consciously control their autonomic nervous system and immune response, something that medical textbooks had long said was impossible. This kind of intense, voluntary stress, Nestor explains, can be profoundly therapeutic. It's like a reset button for the nervous system. For people suffering from autoimmune diseases like arthritis or Crohn's, where the immune system attacks the body, these techniques have shown remarkable results, drastically reducing inflammation. A similar, though more psychologically focused, technique is holotropic breathwork, developed by psychiatrist Stanislav Grof. It involves breathing heavily for up to 3 hours to induce altered states of consciousness. It pushes so much stress on the brain that it can trigger profound psychological breakthroughs, helping people confront trauma in a way that years of talk therapy might not. These extreme techniques aren't for everyday practice. They're the breathing plus, powerful tools to be used consciously, to jolt the body and mind back into balance. Throughout this entire journey, from ancient skulls to modern labs, from gentle prayers to intense hyperventilation, one truth echoes again and again: we have a profound, untapped power within us. The simple, unconscious act of breathing, when done with conscious intention, becomes a lever to control our health, our minds, and our very lives. The final, perfect breath, as Nestor concludes, is a beautiful symphony of all these lost arts. It's breathing in through the nose for about 5.5 seconds, and out through the nose for 5.5 seconds. It's breathing slow, it's breathing less, and it's allowing a full, gentle exhale. It requires no technology, no pills, no special equipment. It is the simple, subtle rhythm of life itself, a rhythm that has been waiting inside us all along, just waiting for us to remember. Commentary. As we come to the end of this incredible journey through breath, I find myself reflecting on one simple, powerful idea. The most profound changes in our lives often come not from adding something new, but from rediscovering something ancient and fundamental that we've lost. For decades, the conversation around health has been dominated by diet and exercise. We count calories, we track our steps, we buy expensive gym memberships. And all of that is important. But what James Nestor so brilliantly reveals is that we've been missing the third pillar of health, and it might just be the most important one of all. It's the 30 pounds of air we process every single day. What strikes me most about this book is its beautiful blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. It's a detective story where the clues are scattered across millennia, in the Sanskrit of the Yoga Sutras, in the faded notes of a 19th-century artist living with Native American tribes, and in the CAT scans of a modern Stanford lab. And all these clues point to the same conclusion: we are the architects of our own breathing, and therefore, of our own health. The book is filled with complex science, the Bohr effect, chemoreceptors, the polyvagal theory, but Nestor has a gift for making it all feel intuitive and deeply personal. He turns a discussion of carbon dioxide tolerance into a story about courage and anxiety. He transforms a lesson on facial anatomy into a powerful commentary on modern civilization. For me, the most transformative lesson was the simplest one: the profound difference between breathing through the nose and breathing through the mouth. It's something so basic, yet so few of us pay attention to it. After reading this book, you start to notice it everywhere: people on the subway, in the gym, even sitting at their desks, breathing through their mouths, completely unaware of the stress they are putting on their bodies. This book isn't just a collection of facts, it's an invitation to start an experiment with yourself. And that's where its true power lies. You don't need to believe in anything mystical. You just need to try it. So, here are a few simple things you can do, right now, to apply the wisdom from this book. First, for the rest of today, just pay attention. Notice when you're breathing through your mouth and gently close it. Bring the breath back to the nose. See how it feels. That's it. Just notice. Second, try the perfect breath. You don't need an app or a timer. Just find a quiet moment, and for 1 minute, try to breathe in for a slow count of 5 or 6, and breathe out for that same slow count. Feel the air fill your belly. Let the exhale be complete and gentle. See if you don't feel a sense of calm settle over you. And third, think about chewing. The next time you eat, choose something a little tougher, a little chewier. A crunchy apple instead of applesauce. A steak instead of a smoothie. Remind your jaw what it was designed to do. These are not dramatic, life-altering changes. They are small, subtle shifts. But as Nestor shows us, over time, these small shifts can lead to profound transformations in our health and happiness. The journey to better health isn't always about a revolutionary new pill or a complicated workout plan. Sometimes, it's just about remembering how to breathe. That was a summary of Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor. We've certainly touched on the most powerful ideas today, but I have to be honest with you. Listening to a summary is like looking at a picture of a wonderful meal. The real nourishment, the real flavor, comes when you experience it for yourself. This book is filled with incredible stories, fascinating characters, and scientific details that we just couldn't cover. It's in those quiet moments, when one of Nestor's stories clicks with your own experience, that the real magic happens. This summary is your map, to help you see if the journey is right for you. If anything we've talked about has sparked your curiosity, I'd truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning information, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you feel in your own body, from this day forward. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.